Welcome to the News Channel 8 PewterReport.com fantasy football forecast. Dan Lucas here with Andrew Scavelli, our fantasy football analyst from PewterReport.com. It is week 14 of the NFL season. More importantly, for most of you, it is week 1 of the playoffs. And Andrew, it's for real, starting now for a lot of owners out there. As tradition holds here, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will have an impact, believe it or not, on fantasy football in the playoffs. What do you got for us?
Absolutely. So we still have 2 guys on the Bucs that are only owned in half leagues, but it should be a crime because certainly I'm feeling really comfortable right now with Jameis Winston. He's had 2 consecutive weeks putting up over 20 points and turnover-free games. This week he goes up against the Saints, who give up the 3rd most fantasy points to quarterbacks. So it's very surprising he's still out there, but if you need a guy to fill in this week, certainly pick him up and play him without question. And then at wide receiver for the Bucs, I'm finally at the point where I trust Adam.
You're over the hump, literally
yes,
over the hump.
I am over the hump. I 100% trust Adam Humphries. He's now put together 3 weeks in a row with double-digit fantasy points and a touchdown, as well as increasing targets throughout those weeks. And obviously the Saints give up the most fantasy points to wide receivers. So between those 2 players, I definitely think Buccaneers could potentially have a big impact on your fantasy playoffs.
All right. I know that the first matchup was in week 1, however, but the Bucs did put up big numbers against the Saints defense, which people have questioned throughout the year. We'll see if they can do it again. All right. Quarterback play, as always, important in fantasy football. You have a guy that you think could help. If he's on your team, you really want to consider playing. Absolutely.
So certainly I'm going to give everybody some sneaky options for the teams that just sneaked into the playoffs. So if you need an extra push maybe to compete with some of those higher powered fantasy teams, these are some of the guys that will help you with that. So certainly at quarterback, Lamar Jackson, I think he's still only owned in half leagues, but he has such high upside due to his dual threat ability on the ground. In the last 3 weeks, he's averaging 85 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown. Even in last week's game, I believe he missed 20 minutes due to a concussion, and he still put up a pretty decent amount of fantasy points. And with this week going up against the Kansas City Chiefs, who give up the 5th most points to quarterbacks, and the fact that it seems like something is kind of, off with that team right now. Certainly, they made Derek Carr look phenomenal last week. So I'm really thinking that'll be a good quarterback play this week. And watch that injury report for the Ravens this week to see if there's an issue with the concussion for Lamar Jackson. All right, running back, you have some news coming out of that, and that could impact a lot of teams. Absolutely. So probably the biggest fantasy news of the week, but Mike Tomlin announced earlier today that running back James Conner is going to be out this week with an ankle injury. So in that case, their backup Jalen Samuels is a must pick up and start running back 1 option against the Oakland Raiders. And if your team, if you think, okay, I'm maybe 1 piece away, Jalen Samuels is that missing piece. So definitely pick him up and play him this week in James Conner's absence.
All right, you mentioned wide receiver Adam Humphries. If he's out there and you have the option to go there, great. If not, wide receiver position this week, who do you like?
So this is a guy that everybody definitely needs to be monitoring. He's only owned in 6% of leagues right now, but certainly the 49ers rookie wide receiver Dante Pettis. Over the last 2 weeks, he's caught 9 passes for 206 yards, 3 touchdowns, and scored 40 fantasy points in the absence of Marquise Goodwin and Pierre Garçon. So definitely make sure to monitor his status, see if either of those guys, one or both, are going to be out again this week. And he's also going up against the Denver Broncos, who will be without their best cornerback, Chris Harris, this week. So it's a really good matchup potential there at wide receiver.
And at tight end, more news that could affect your lineup.
So certainly, unfortunately, for Greg Olsen owners, looks like that foot injury that he's been playing through for this entire season, obviously that kind of caught up to him, and he's going to be out for the year now with a foot injury. Really, there aren't a lot of guys out there at this point that you could just plug and play to replace them, but my recommendation would be to go for his backup, Ian Thomas. Once he came into the game against the Bucs last week, he got 5 passes for 46 yards. So it looks like they're still going to target the tight end position.
An option there. And real quickly, give us a defense.
So I actually have 2 defenses for you, both owned in probably half leagues, but I really like Thursday night's matchup against the Jaguars and Titans. Both of those defenses, obviously the Jaguars give up the 5th most fantasy points. The Titans give up the 8th most on offense, and obviously the Jaguars' quarterback situation is still a question mark with Cody Kessler. I think the Jaguars, the team, only were able to score 6 points last week. So I think it's going to be a really sloppy game on a short week, and both of those teams I would trust for playing this week.
Jaguars pitching a shutout, touchdown-wise, against the Colts, giving up to. So there you go. Good stuff as always, Andrew. Week 14, we're ready to go to get the playoffs underway for many of you. And well, all we can say is good luck. Check that injury report of the Ravens. Don't forget about it.